Good evening, everyone. My name is Bavette Brackett, and I'm the founder of Big Black Brunch. Welcome today to Frontier in the Field. Today, we're going to be having a discussion regarding Today we're going to be having a discussion about the frontier and how the frontier was won. A lot of people have misconceptions about who actually created California, San Francisco, Yerba Buena, et cetera. And there's this idea of kind of the West as being just monolithic in terms of mainly white men are being seen as cowboys. However, there's a larger narrative out there, and so we're going to have some discussions around that today. Today we have some amazing speakers for you as well, and I did want to say thank you to the Commonwealth Club for having us here today. This event would not be possible without the assistance of Michelle Meow, who is one of the producers of various shows and programming here at the Commonwealth Club. It also would like to, in the beginning, thank our sponsors as well, Alaska Airlines, as well as OMI CPP, and we're going to get started. So I want to do a little bit of Q&A with our audience to see if anyone can kind of shout out the answer. I'm going to give you guys some pretty easy questions, and then it'll get increasingly harder. I'm going to only ask 5 questions, so we'll see who the smartest person in the room is, right? So the first question, does anyone know what year, and feel free to scream it out, California was founded? Got it. Does anyone know who the founding fathers are of San Francisco? That's one.
Can you repeat their answer so we can hear it?
William Leidesdorff. William Leidesdorff was an African-American commercial shipman. He came from the Caribbean, specifically St. Croix area, and he is actually considered one of the founding fathers. He opened the first hotel. He created our San Francisco Unified School District, as well as served as the first treasurer of San Francisco. Does anyone know who the founding mother of San Francisco is? Nope. There was someone who was here even before her. Any other guesses? Okay, well, I'll give it to you guys. Her name was Juana de Briones. She actually came to California when California was still Mexico with Juan de Bautista, who actually traveled up to California region, specifically the southern region, and then they came further north during when Mexico owned the U.S., and they actually came here. There were 44 people who were part of the initial expedition, and 26 of those 44 people were actually of African descent. So over 50% of the people who first populated the U.S. were of African descent. Just wanted to drop a little details to you guys, and I'm going to now end our Q&A and move on over to our introductions. So first up, I'd like to introduce you guys to Daryl Fletcher. He is the owner and founder of Soufriere Ranch, located in Atlanta, Georgia. Next up, we have Shauna Whitfield from Brotherhood and Sisterhood Writers, Inc. They are a member of the National Coalition, Northern California Coalition of Black Cowboys and Cowgirls. And then last up, but not least, we have with us today the esteemed Dr. Damian L. Thomas. He is a museum curator with the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. So, Dr. Thomas, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do at the museum?
Sure. I'm a native Californian. And what I do at the museum is I curate the sports exhibition. And for me, what I try to do is to not just say that African Americans can run fast and jump high or to create a Hall of Fame. Instead, what I try to do is to tell African American history through the lens of sports. And so I had the task of trying to curate an exhibition for non-sports fans. And by that, I mean people who can't tell the difference between a slam dunk and a touchdown. But I wanted them to go in and to see why sports have been so important for the African American struggle for greater rights and freedoms in this country. And so what we do now is continue to do that work within the museum, but we're also a national museum, which means that it is our responsibility to take our story to the people who will never come to Washington, D.C. We've had about 13 million people come into the museum in the 10 years that we've been open, and now we want to try to reach every single person in the United States. So we're engaged in some new programming that'll take our message and our themes and our stories far and wide.
Thank you for that. And I just had another follow-up question for you before I move on over to our next guest. Could you share with us a little bit about your inspiration behind your work, as well as why did you select Black jockeys to be in part of your initial Changemakers exhibits?
Sure. My inspiration for my work is really to use the power of history to inspire, uplift, and encourage people, to get people to think about themselves, to think about African Americans in a different light. So my hope is that when people come to the museum, that they leave with a deeper understanding of history and with the idea that change is possible. And I think that really is the core message of our museum, that change is possible. It's not always easy, and it just doesn't happen. It is the product of people struggling and fighting for a better future. For me, when I was thinking about the gallery, I wanted to move away from an analysis of individual athletes. So the way the museum's gallery is organized is that here's basketball's contribution, here's football's contributions, baseball's contribution. So we have these huge rooms devoted to the major sports that have transformed African American history. But then you have some stories that don't quite fit as neatly. And so horse racing and Black jockeys is one of those stories. So we created this separate section called Game Changers. And that is the very first case in that section. And it's important for me to include that because, one, I wanted to start in the period of slavery. I wanted people to know that sports were incredibly important that early in our history. And the two sports that were really big during that time is horse racing and boxing. And so the story of Black jockeys is one that people don't know. People don't realize that African Americans used to dominate horse racing. If you go back to the first Kentucky Derby, African Americans were 13 of the 15 riders. These were skills that they learned during enslavement, and after the period of enslavement, continue to draw upon and to dominate that industry. And then they were pushed out in the early part of the 20th century. And that history's largely been forgotten because now we tend to think of horse racing as this elite, this white, this wealthy kind of sport. And the contributions of African Americans to it have been written out of that narrative. And so I wanted to ensure that our museum was preserving and protecting that history.
Thank you. I'll move on over to Shauna. Welcome again.
Thank you.
So I'd like to know a little bit about your organization and the work that you do and how you got into racing horses or riding horses.
So we are a part of the Northern California Coalition of Black Cowboys and Cowgirls Association, but that's an umbrella for an even broader group of independent riders, horse riding clubs. A lot of us have nonprofits, but our particular club is Brotherhood and Sisterhood Riders, Inc. So we bring our horses into different communities of disparity, into the black and brown communities where they don't have to come to us. We load our horses, we take them into the different communities, we provide lunch, and then we try to teach them as much horsemanship as possible, or just try to get them affiliated and familiar with the horse culture.
Thank you. And what made it so important for you to kind of spread awareness about horse riding? You're a San Francisco native yourself, and
Absolutely. Born and raised here in the city. Horses just, they bring something different to you. You can be down, you can be, just being around them. It's actually empowering to be able to control those 1,000-pound horses, to watch the kids from the age of 2 and up possibly being able to ride the horses. So it is empowering. I think it's important that we bring them into the community because a lot of our kids in the community, my community in San Francisco as well, they don't get to see horses. They're not familiar with it. And the funny thing is that they really don't know how embedded it is in them. Because sometimes these kids who have never been on horses, they seat their saddle, they hold their reins, they've never been on a horse before, but it's something in them that makes them be able to do just that without having to be told what to do. So I think it's something that's been passed down culturally that they just don't know that they have in them.
I loved you touched on kind of the personal experience with horses. I myself, also a San Francisco native, got exposed to horses during Juneteenth parade when the horses would ride in our Juneteenth parade back in the 80s and the 90s. And so that was my first experience seeing horses. But during the Juneteenth parade, my dad, he was so strict, he wouldn't let me ride. So I was one of those kids that were gawking from behind. But and this is a great and amazing segue over to you, Daryl Fletcher, and the work that you're doing and kind of your field of study and your tutelage as well. So could you tell us a little bit about your organization, what you do, and how long you've been? You're one of the OGs in the game, so would love to hear about you.
Okay. So again, my name is Daryl Fletcher. I'm the executive director and founder of an organization called SOFA Ranch. SOFA Ranch, or SOFA, the name SOFA is an acronym which stands for Stretch Out on Faith Again Ranch. In addition to that, I'm also the CEO of a company called Equicor, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But I got my introduction to horses through my dad. At 7 years old, I was an anxious, fearful young man, and one Saturday morning, my dad said, "Hey, put on some shorts and, come with me." And I didn't quite know where we were going, but we ended up at a horse ranch. And it was that exhilarating feeling that you talk about, that you get on the horse, they tell you a little bit what to do, but it almost comes naturally. And that anxiety and fear and, just all those, butterflies in my stomach went away. And my father used that as a catalyst to let me know that I can do anything, that I don't have to be afraid, that I don't have to, be fearful of my older siblings. And so with that, it was an empowering moment. And so very soon after my father introduced me to horses, my father passed away. And I wanted my life to be a homage to my father. And so years later, after, all going through college and, getting degrees and being a consultant and being a youth pastor and all these different other things, I said, I want to create a place where young men, young women could come and experience that liberation, experience that empowerment, experience that confidence building that I experienced when I was just 7 years old. And horses were the vehicle that gave me that opportunity. And so we created SOFA Ranch. And quite similar to what you were talking about as well, one of the programs that we had at SOFA Ranch is called Horses Healing the Hood, which is actually, the catalyst for our book, where kids couldn't always come out to the ranch. You know, we're right outside the city in Atlanta, and we said, okay, because schools would call us and organizations would call us and say, hey, man, you're an hour away, or you're 30 minutes away, you're 45 minutes away. That's a little bit too far for our budget. And so we said that we didn't want distance or resources to be an issue for people to experience the healing power of horses. And so we created a program called Horses Healing the Hood. So we took the horses actually into neighborhoods that in underserved communities where they didn't have the opportunity to experience horses, and doing little pony rides right in the street, or doing little cul-de-sacs, things like that. And that was a catalyst to introduce kids to equine assisted therapy and equine assisted learning, where we use the horses as a catalyst to build their confidence, overcome anxiety, and help them build better communication skills.
That's amazing. I'm glad that you really prefaced on equine assisted therapy, because that's becoming a really big area of therapy, especially here in California, as well as more and more children with autistic needs and special needs are actually being cured through the power of horses and their relationship. And would love to hear more, a little bit about the field of equine therapy and what got you into that, beyond just the personal experience.
Well, it was my personal experience, but if I can, before I get to my personal experience, I want to talk, you mentioned autism or children on the spectrum. We had a young lady that came to our organization that was on the spectrum, and she had experienced equine assisted therapy in Houston, experienced some slight growth in her interaction. But then after just 3 sessions in doing some of our program, because one of the things that we talk about at Sofa Ranch is that we want to make sure that the programs that we present are in a manner where it is understandable to the community that we are involved in. And so with that, we provide culturally appropriate therapy to where it's a little bit more intense and a little bit more involved than the average equine assisted therapeutic center. And after just 3 sessions, her mom called us and was like, she's passing her tests. She's being more social. She's being more interactive. What are you guys doing? And it was one of those things like, we're not doing anything. It's just the interaction with the horse. We provide the atmosphere and the environment where that person can be more self-aware. I was talking to Damien in the back, and one of the things that I mentioned was, a horse doesn't care what you say, but they care how you show up. And in working with horses, we give people the opportunity to understand how they're showing up. When a horse is within 4 feet of you, they can feel your heart rate. They can smell the pheromones and the chemicals that your body's giving off. And as an equine specialist, my job is to study horse behavior and human behavior and give people the opportunity to see how they parallel. And in a session, we unpack, we dissect some of that inward behavior that is taking place so that that person can be more aware of, oh, I am doing that, or oh, I am experiencing that, whether it's in communication, whether it's in anxiety, whether it's in a number of mental health challenges that people may be experiencing. They become aware and they become more present. So if you're more present, you understand how you're showing up.
That's amazing. Love hearing that. In terms of being present and showing up, I just want to dip on over back to you, Dr. Thomas, and ask you about what showing up meant in terms of, you know, we hear a lot about the Kentucky Derby and the jockeys on that side, but would love to hear your thoughts on the westward movement of jockeys to the West Coast and California, et cetera.
Sure. I think it's an understudied part of our history, the way in which cowboys have been essential to the westward expansion of the United States. U.S. history, westward expansion is a fascinating topic, one in which we don't spend a lot of time thinking about. If you go back to the 1700s and 1800s, and most people were moving around, they were walking. Most people's major form of transportation was simply walking until you get the cable cars a little bit later and trains. The horses were essentially for wealthy people. But one of the things that happens is you have the Homestead Act of 1862, which is one of the most significant events in American history. It's when America gave away millions of acres of land. All you have to do is be willing to kind of move. And so what happens is that the westward expansion and the people on the frontier, the cowboys who are on the frontier, are the people who go before the masses. And so it's dangerous, it's difficult, and that's the job largely of African American and Mexican Americans who do the dangerous work preparing the West for settlement. It's been estimated that combined African Americans and Latinos are over 75% of the cowboys and cattle hands who are kind of doing that work. It's also interesting that it emerges out of Texas, which was part of Mexico through the 1830s, 1840s. And so horses originally get to the Americas. They come with Columbus, not on his first trip in 1492, but his second trip in 1493, settling in the Caribbean. And then the Spanish bring horses. And so most of our horse culture comes out of a Spanish tradition. And so those people who had those skills were essential to kind of getting people and then moving the cattle, which became a major source of wealth. I know people think about the gold rush, moving people west, where the cattle rush also moved people west, because when people found out that cattle in Texas, if you sold it, let's say in today's time, if you sold a piece of a cow in Texas, you could get $600. If you then drove the cattle up north and sold it to New York, you would get $6,000. And so it became this huge profit center where people would drive 2,000 cattle up north at a time. And that's equivalent in today's money of like $1 million. And so lots of people tried to move west to take advantage of that cattle industry and then continue moving westward with the expansion all the way to California after the Mexican-American War in 1846. In some ways, it's the forgotten war, but a third of America's territory comes to become part of America after that war.
If I may say something to pick up off history as well, in regards to, the early settlers, even the persons of African American descent, persons who are within the horse community know the sound of those types of sounds to get the horses moving. That came from African culture because they had that clicking language, and largely because of the people who were operating or handling the horses were of African descent and Mexican descent. So that and things of that nature is history. When you hear those sounds, that comes from our African culture, our Mexican culture, where moving that cattle, and it all comes from those type of sounds. And just like we're talking about it, how we are involved in that history and don't even know it. That's just really major, especially as we are dissecting our topic tonight.
Yeah, and I love that you said that as well, because a lot of people don't know that one of the first places that was populated in California was Alta California, and that was the Pico brothers from Mexico, and they were of African descent, and they were rancheros, and they owned lots of cattle, and they were known as the wealthiest men in America because of their fortune that they built through cattle ranching and supplying 49ers or the gold rush men with food and stuff like that. And as I mentioned earlier, Juana de Briones, she was actually one of the children that came over with Juan de Batista, and they came up further north, which is where Yerba Buena, where we are right now. And she also built her fortune through farming, cattle ranching, and acquiring large land grants. So even prior to the Homestead Act, there were several land grants that were given to Mexican families of African descent that pretty much powered California's global empire. They made trade possible with Canada. They made trade possible with Hawaii. They made trade possible with the Caribbean and also even on the East Coast. And a lot of their fortunes actually went to funding the war. So that eventually led to our freedom. So with that being said, Shauna, can you give us a little bit explanation of what you guys are going to be doing this year in terms of spreading the word and offerings that you have for the community if they want to get involved or they have children and want to know a little bit about kind of what you guys do?
So at the beginning of the year, multiple horseman groups and also independent riders, we put together a calendar. So a calendar of events that's going to take place throughout the entire year. We get it sent out to everyone. Brotherhood and Sisterhood Riders, we host our annual youth camp out every August where it's a 3-day event. There's a fish fry. There's a family-style potluck where our group provides the meat. Everyone brings side dishes and so forth. But there are multiple organizations that are doing exactly what we're doing. We're just trying to continue to keep the cowboy culture going because there's so many cowboys and cowgirls of African descent right here in Northern California that have actually paved the way for us. So we're just trying to keep going what they've started a long time ago. So a lot of our groups host these events. We do day camps. Our particular group, as I said, we don't have a ranch to where we bring neighborhood children to us, but we go out as often as we can and providing lunches, giving them horseback rides, providing them with like hat decoration stations to where they're able to make it into their own, change their cowboy hats into their own. This upcoming weekend, we will be at Candlestick Park hosting an event with some of the children from Glide Memorial and some of them that are that have been within the juvenile hall system. So we'll host about 40 kids right at Candlestick State Park, introduce them to our horses. If they would like to ride, we'll definitely offer rides. Otherwise, we'll be teaching some line dancing, let them decorate their hats and so forth, things like that. So we try to get out in the community as often as possible because we have this calendar of events. We do a lot during the summer, but we also bring kids with us. So some of them, we can't bring them all, but if we're able to, and it's okay with their parents, we actually take them on these trips with us so that they can experience being out around the horses, riding them into the lakes, just being able to just do a weekend camp out, a weekend horse camp out. They see what it is to get up early in the morning, make sure your horses are fed and watered, experience trail rides and things like that. So that's what we will continue to do throughout the year.
Well, I'm super excited about the Saturday event.
Thank you.
I'm super excited about the Saturday event because that's in Bayview Hunters Point at Candlestick Point Park and the California State Parks with Lisa, who's here today. Her and her team welcomed us with open arms. And I think it's going to be the first time we got horses back at the park since Willie Brown asked for them to come maybe about 30 years ago, right? And I think his daughter's in the crowd somewhere, Miss Susan Brown. So, part of what I do with Big Black Brunch is I try to reclaim our history I try to preserve our culture through food ways, so we'll be providing free lunch for the children at this event through Everett and Jones Barbecue, who is a fourth-generation pitmaster, and they're actually going to be coming back to San Francisco on Fisherman's Wharf this year. So look out for that notification. We will have Everett and Jones Barbecue here in San Francisco either this month or next month. So look forward to that. So next, I'd like to hear from you,
Sure.
Mr. Fletcher, again, because I saw your eyes peek up when we started talking about the history, and then also in terms
Yeah,
of
well,
like,
history is one of my favorite subjects, and Damien and I were having a great conversation in the back. You know, it's important that we realize that understanding our history. How did you say it? Our present. What you said something with regard to our history. It tells your presence tells. What did you say? Because I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to misquote. You.
Sure. I was just telling him about he asked me why I became a historian, and I told him one of my professors inspired me when I was a student at UCLA, and he said whoever controls the present will use their power to control the past in hopes of controlling the future.
Yeah, and that is in alignment with, you know, as we work with horses through equine-assisted therapy. A lot of times, one of the techniques that we talk about when we're working with horses, and we're maybe working with a child that may be struggling with confidence in school or suffering from anxiety or struggling with communication issues, they're so worried about what's about to happen, or they're bogged down with what has happened, that they struggle to stay present. And when we struggle to stay present, it really hinders what we can actually accomplish in the future. Because when we were working with, I was telling a story about one of the young men, his name is Franklin, he's in the book. He was 10 years old when he came. He's now 16. And Franklin was a little short guy, about 4'9", maybe probably shorter than that. And he was intimidated by all the other students with him. And his confidence was low. He was afraid of the horses. He didn't want to ride. He wanted to ride, but he was afraid to ride. And his mom told him that, I'm not going to let you give up on this. And I told him, I'm not going to give up on you. And so with that, over a period of 1 to 2 years, we saw that afraid, anxious little boy turn into somebody that was confident. For the last 2 years of Sofa Ranch, Franklin has ran our summer camp. He arrives at 6:30 in the morning, feeds 18 horses by himself, then saddles up horses, teaching other kids how to saddle, teaching other kids how to feed, teaching other kids what to do, how to do, when they're around horses. This young man can ride anything and everything. His confidence is through the roof, because we showed him how to let go of the past, stay in the present, and prepare for your future. And it's so important from an emotional regulation standpoint that our kids are distracted by so much technology and distracted by apps and this and that. And it's cool. I understand it. Totally understand it. I got apps. I'm on them too. But I understand how to stay present, understanding how to be in the moment. When the attention span used to be 8 seconds. You know what the attention span is now? 3.
Wow.
If you're not grabbing their attention within 3 seconds, they are gone. How can they learn? How can they be husbands? How can they be wives? How can they be students if their attention span is only 3 seconds? That's less than a goldfish. So it's important that when we are working with these young men and I'm teaching you how to stand in front of a 1,400-pound animal and just breathe. And then when the moment you feel that confidence, that horse matches your breath. If you stand in front of a horse long enough and you do deep breathing that horse will say, because he is picking up what you putting off. Now we take that same principle and transfer that to the classroom when they're making presentations. Transfer that when they have to stand up to a bully. I used to tell Franklin, I said, if I can teach you how to ride this 1,400-pound animal, you should never have a problem in school with a bully. Because you can control this thing that outweighs you 30 times. But you mean to tell me you can't handle a bully in school? So once again, not only are we teaching emotional regulation and communication, but we're giving them the ammunition that they need to be confident in every space of their life. And that's what our kids need these days. They don't need another video game. They don't need another app. They need to learn how they can stand on their own 2 feet and become confident in no matter what situation they may be in.
I like that you brought up the attention span, because as you know, cowboy culture has kind of gotten a real big reemergence through TikTok, you know, pop culture, Beyonce, Shabuzi,
All of
you
that.
know, all of these new country and Western artists that are Black. And specifically, Shauna, I know you mentioned line dancing, which is African American tradition as well, and just would love to hear how you're seeing your role in this whole reemergence, and if you're seeing, you know, actually more people participating and wanting to learn about cowboys, cowgirls, and horsemanship, et cetera. Because there's a whole wide area to, you know, riding horses, and so would love to hear a little bit about
Absolutely.
what you guys do in that.
And
area.
there's no age. Like, doesn't matter the age. The younger kids, the older kids, they mix together. Yes, and sometimes you see them a little bit offbeat, a little off key, but by the end of the night, like you said, their attention span, they are paying attention. They are able to get the steps. They are able to keep up. That's because we're able to get something that they want to pay attention to, that they want to be a part of. So if it's not something that's going to keep their attention, obviously we won't have it. But doing little things like keeping them on a time frame, get up, you need to feed your horses, like all those things require them to be focused and to pay attention. And I agree, it does teach them to be confident in what they're doing. And my now 4-year-old granddaughter, you would think she's like 15 years old, the way that she handles and communicates with the horses. And she's a little thing, but the confidence in her, she's fearless. She's not scared of anything. So, and that's how we want them to be. We want them to be able to be fearless, be present, be in the moment. And that's with all situations, whether it's line dancing, whether it's being out at the ranch feeding the horse, whether it's in school. We want to be able to have something to keep their, have something to keep their mind occupied. You know, I agree with the apps and the phones and things like that. But it makes me so happy when we're out at a camp out weekend, no one touches their phones. No one touches their iPad. Like, they've had such a great time all weekend. All they want to do is go to sleep. They don't even bother with those things during camp out weekends. So their attention is brought back to where we want it to be, and not necessarily on social media or in their apps or on their phone. So yeah, I think it's important to give them other things to try to get back control of their attention spans, because yeah, their attention spans are really short these days. I have 6 grandkids, so I know that their attention span is short. But it's other ways too, because my grandbabies, they garden. You know, I'm like in the kitchen cutting up things, and oh, here's some seeds. Go plant these tomato seeds. Like, we have to give them something else to make them feel like they're involved with something bigger. So I do agree with like trying to just get control of their attention and giving them other things. The dogs may even dig up the vegetables that they plant, but they're watching their vegetables and they're like, yeah, they've taken up what we planted. Okay, let's start over. Let's take it from the top. So it's just getting them out there. So even though I am from San Francisco, I was raised up in Lake County, which is the country considered to the city. So for a good 4 years of my elementary years, and that's what we did. We gardened, walked to the lake, we fished, like we did all those things. We were at the ranch, we're around farm animals. So those are things that are important to me that I bring back to my community in San Francisco, to the communities around the Bay Area. You know, just those little things. Just if you just get a little bit of it, it makes you hungry and want more. You know, my grandkids, any given Sunday, can we take the horses out? Even though they're right in the backyard, Sunday dinner is on, let's pull the horses out and ride up and down the street. You would not even know how many kids that I never even knew lived on my street come out. They want to be a part of it. So we have to give them something that they want to be a part of that's going to continue to hold their attention span, you know? So we have to, and these days, we have to think outside the box. We absolutely have to think outside the box because the gadgets and the phones and things, like it's a really big thing right now. So if we're not doing something else that make them want to do something else, they're not gonna follow our lead.
Thank you for that. Dr. Thomas, are you seeing similar emergence in kind of the sports arena around horses, equestrian? I know I'm going to say it came up in my feed on Instagram. There's a young woman who's right now training to participate in the equestrian games in the U.S. Olympics. And so are you also seeing a similar reemergence of Black athletes in this field as well?
A little bit. I think when it comes to Black jockeys, if you go back to the 1920s, the last African Americans to compete in the Kentucky Derby were in the 1920s, and it's not till 2000, 80 years later, that we get another African American competing in the Kentucky Derby. And since then, we've had about 3 or 4 who've also competed in the Kentucky Derby. But it's improving, but there's still challenges and obstacles ahead because it's still considered to be an elite sport. It still has really high barriers to entry for people at the highest levels. And so I think it's really important that if we see people that we be supportive and encouraging of them. One of the things that we did at the museum was to host a Kentucky Derby party. And as part of that was to educate people about this long history. And so it was inspiring to a number of people. And so it's by telling the story, reclaiming the history, that we are best able to inspire people to kind of take us into the future.
Well, I just wanted to give all of our panelists a round of applause. And also open up the floor for 2 questions. We have limited time, so if there are 2 members of the public who'd like to come to the stage and ask a question or actually, if you would like to go to the left, you can ask questions of our panelists. Anyone else? Going once, going twice?
So thank you, panel, for the wonderful share of information. I loved everything that you said. I would love to know a little bit more about the book that you have there, but also, too, if you can talk.
Please also state your name, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Carmen Kelly, and I would love to know more about the book, and I would also like to know a bit more about equestrian therapy. I have an 8-year-old grandson who is an avid reader, who's a mathematician out of this world. The kid's a brainiac, but he actually enjoys learning in different ways. And so we will go to the museum and we'll pull out a math book and we'll find different things around us to count. and do math equations with. But he also reads to dogs. So the public library system where he lives, in the city that he lives, has it where you can actually bring dogs into the library and you can read to the dog. And it's energy that helps to encourage the child to, one, read more, but also two, to understand that this is a judgment-free zone, which is really good. So if the kid like stalls on letters or stutters or needs assistance with phonetic sounds, etc., then the adult is there, but there's no audience that is going to judge you on missing that. And we have done that with my grandson since he was like 5 years old, and he now has his own group of dogs. He has too many dogs, if you ask me. But he reads to his dogs at home, and he does presentations to his dogs of his book reports, which is encouraged because he needs an audience, and sometimes mom and dad are doing things around the house, but the dogs are there. This is why we have them. So I just would like to understand equestrian therapy and whether that same opportunity is there, because if it is, then this kid's got a new camp this summer. So I'd love to learn more.
So equine assisted therapy is an umbrella term involving a myriad of modalities. So you have equine assisted psychotherapy, you have hippotherapy, you have equine assisted learning. And so I'm going to talk about equine assisted learning a little bit in regards to your grandson. Equine assisted learning would definitely help him build his confidence, but also the horses become a mirror. They're going to match his emotions. If he's calm, they'll be calm. If he's excited, he'll be excited. And my job as an equine specialist is, as I'm observing him, I get the opportunity to maybe interject in their interaction to let him know what's going on inside of him, so he becomes aware of what's taking place. Because he'll just go reading. We have one horse named Pocket. Well, his name's not Pocket. We call him Pocket. His real name is King Courage, but we call him Pocket because he stays in the back of your pocket. And we will do an exercise with a person that may be dealing with some form of anxiety or some form of tension, where we put them in the center of the arena by themselves, just sitting in a chair, and just have them sit and maybe do breathing exercises. When the person calms down, the horse will show up. So the horses are always drawn to peace. If you got anything chaotic going on here or in here, that horse is gonna just stay away from you. And so that particular exercise teaches a person how to center themselves in stressful situation. Maybe they may be anxious about something. And so breathing exercises, affirmation. And another exercise that we do is we use the horses as a journal. So the person or child would walk around the arena and tell the horse about their day. And when they have calmed down or made some adjustment emotionally, the horse is going to respond to them different. They may drop their head. They may do a sigh of, which would mean they're releasing that tension. And so once again, my job is to observe, to see what's going on, so that the person, I'll say, stop. What's going on here and here? And if they're able to articulate it, then now they can talk more about their feelings. They can talk more about what they're thinking, more about what they're experiencing. And then, once again, we can take that same experience in the arena and transfer it into the classroom, transfer it at home, transfer it at school, because they now become more self-aware. To talk about the book a little bit, I talk about some of those programs that we do. We talk about our summer camp program, equine assisted learning, some of our veterans program that we do. The books are available for sale after we're finished here, but it really gives a person an opportunity to understand how powerful horses can take a person's life from the standpoint of being more aware here and here. Because oftentimes we put the cart before the horse, really in literal terms, because we're so anxious, we're thinking this, we're thinking that, and we can't pause to be present. And so horses are a wonderful vehicle to teach people how to do that. Next question.
Hi, thank you so much for this panel. I'm just fascinated with everything Black Cowboy related, so thank you for this.
Could you also state your name, please?
Oh, my name's Terry Crenshaw. I'm in workforce development, so if you have any, as a side note, if you have anything, if you want to talk about any professions relating to working with horses, then glad to talk about that. But what I wanted to say is that there's one historical figure that I find fascinating, and there's a couple of books that have been written about his life. He was one of the jockeys in the heyday of black jockeys, but he migrated to Europe. I forget his whole name, but I know he was known by a nickname of Wink. And
Oliver.
Sorry?
His name is Oliver.
Oliver? Okay. And that was a fascinating story. So I feel like that would make a great movie. And I wonder if there are I know there was a lot of scholarship that went into writing those books, and I wonder if there's other stories that we don't know about of, fascinating life stories of these folks, if you can mention them.
I think you're absolutely right. This is a history that people don't know. And so what's happened is over the last 10 years, we've seen a couple of really important biographies and a couple of books that look at the history of black jockeys. I'm thinking of Edward Hotelling's book, thinking about the biography of Jimmy Wingfield. And so now one of the things it's my job is to take the scholarship and then make it available to people in an accessible manner. And so one of the ways we try to do that is by hosting this Kentucky Derby party, encouraging people to do documentaries and things of that particular nature. But the first thing is to get that foundation of incredible and sound historical scholarship. And so now that we have a critical mass, we'll start to see other forms of things happen. One of the challenges is I was talking to a Hollywood producer about some of these kind of issues and similar issues. One of the challenges of Hollywood is they don't believe that black people's period pieces sell. Despite all of the evidence to the contrary, the hidden figures, the sinners, it is still incredibly hard to sell black period pieces in Hollywood, despite all of the evidence that you're going to have a $20 million budget and you're going to make $70 to $100 million. The fact that it's not going to make $400 million or cost you $200 million and you might only make $100 million. Black films typically make money. It's usually about $50 million, but even still, with the success rate of black films, we still have a hard time getting Hollywood to continue. I am hopeful that Sinner getting 16 nominations might help, but the history doesn't bear out that we will see an increase of these opportunities. But we have to continue to push those industries to tell these important stories.
Yeah,
I agree.
Sorry, you guys, I'm fumbling with a couple things tonight, as you can see. But as we close this program today, I just wanted to reiterate why we're here today. Not only to learn our history and to reclaim our history and to learn more about equine-assisted therapy, but we're actually here to give back to community. And today's event, we are fundraising on behalf of Glide Church and their after-school program. So the proceeds from this event, from ticket sales, is going to be going to Glide's after-school program, who has experienced very deep cuts during the current budget cycle in San Francisco. And so I'd like to have To Sing come up from Glide to talk a little bit about Glide and the program and the organization and the great work that they do in the community. Yes, I'll get this. You can come up. I'll get the mic.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Oh, I think you can do better than that. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It is so good to see everyone here on this evening. Well, before I say that, I just want to celebrate you. Can we give a round of applause for Bivette, the visionary behind this great work and all the work that you're doing in our community, and to our esteemed panelists on this evening. Would you mind joining me in a round of applause for them? I learned so much from y'all, and I'm just so grateful to be in you all presence on today. My name is Tissing Parker, and I'm the Chief Program Officer for GLIDE, and I'm standing in on behalf of our President and CEO, Dr. Gina Frommer. Thank you so much for having us on today. GLIDE is an amazing organization. Many of you might know of the work that we do, but every single day, all day, we are meeting the needs of our community here in San Francisco and serving youth and families, particularly in the Tenderloin community. I don't know if you know, but the Tenderloin is lively, it is vibrant, it is joyful, and oftentimes many of our children and our families experience some of the most disparate things you could imagine. Gratefully, GLIDE is in the center of all of that work and has been doing work in the community for nearly 100 years. Yeah, 100 years. And we're delighted to do it. And as Bivette mentioned, we have experienced some significant cuts and setbacks as it relates to the support to serve that community. The Tenderloin community has the highest concentration of children in the city of San Francisco. And that means that we have a ton of work to do every single day. And we do that work by implementing community-led solutions and innovative practices to address the needs in our community. In this spring, we will be rebuilding and doing some reconstruction to our childcare and our after-school program space, because we want the space in the community where our children are living to be fun, to be safe, to be clean, and to be an enriching environment where they can strengthen their learning to set them up for future success. We're also excited to integrate our services in such a way that we are opening up a barbershop in the month of March to support Black men in San Francisco. We want to interrupt and disrupt the fatalities of Black men on the streets of San Francisco due to overdose. Because Black men represent amongst the highest population of folks dying on the streets of San Francisco. Again, GLIDE has been around for nearly 100 years, and we're so grateful that you all decided to come out on today to support this initiative, because your presence makes a difference, your presence matters, and we're grateful to have you as a partner in this work. And so if you are interested in collaborating in any sort of way, if you want to come out and volunteer with us, or if you want to give back, feel free to see me after the event on today, and feel free to visit our website at glide.org. Again, that's glide.org. I'll be around after the event, but again, I want to say thank you to everyone who was here, and certainly thank you to you, Ms. Bivette, for your work, your leadership, and your love. Let's give a round of applause for her again.
Well, don't leave just yet. I come bearing gifts from the State of California Controller's Office. We in the community, we love the work that GLIDE does, and we love even more Dr. Gina Frommer and all of the decades that she's dedicated to community and to preserving space for Black children and families in the city. And so we wanted to award her today with a recognition from the state of California, an honor and recognition of her outstanding commitment to community transformation and radical inclusion. As president and CEO of GLIDE, one of San Francisco's most historic and impactful centers for social justice, community services, and spiritual inclusivity, your leadership and bold vision to expand critical services including food security, housing assistance, behavioral health support, advocacy programs, and community empowerment initiatives while strengthening GLIDE's mission on social issues, dignity, and love contributes to the cultural and economic vitality of the San Francisco Bay Area and state of California. Congratulations on this occasion for your special recognition during Black History Month at the Frontier and Field Black Cowboys from Gold Rush to Super Bowl 60 event.
Awesome.
And then I also want to give you guys a little tidbit of information. GLIDE was actually founded through the founder, Lizzie. Her and her husband were in the ranching business, and they actually own a lot of ranches and farm properties throughout the state of California. And after he passed away, she took over his cattle business, and that was how she was able to create Glide the Church, fund the women's dormitory at UC Berkeley, and various other buildings that, and expand her philanthropic actions. So just keep a big tie-in on there. And so, as I mentioned, our state controller also wanted to recognize these speakers were intentionally chosen tonight because of the work that they do in community and because of just their legacy and what they give to the greater community of San Francisco. So, and not just San Francisco, but specifically the state of California. So one of the things that Dr. Thomas did not mention, but I will mention now, is that he's a 3-time graduate of UCLA. Not only is he a native,
Congratulations. That's awesome.
and he's actually making history for us in California. So wanted to present him with this plaque as well, in honor and recognition of your outstanding commitment to ensuring the stories of Black athletes, communities, and cultural movements are preserved and presented with nuance, dignity, and scholarly rigor. Your dedication to historical stewardship stands as a transformative contribution to preservation of Black heritage and the enrichment of our collective understanding of American history in the San Francisco Bay Area and across the state of California. Congratulations on this occasion for this special award for cultural and historical preservation during Black History Month.
Thank you.
Next up, we did want to present an award to the Brotherhood and Sisterhood Writers, Inc. organization, and I would like for Shauna to come receive the gift, as well as her husband. So I'll let you guys hold it between each other, because it's just as much yours as it is hers. Thank you for introducing her to cowboy and cowboy culture. And if you'd like to say a few comments about how many generations in cowboy heritage you are.
Well, I'm probably like 10 generation. My dad started in Texas and he ran to California, and we've been doing it ever since.
So 10 generations, y'all. Let's give them a round of applause. So I just wanted to read off, in honor and recognition of your outstanding commitment to preserving, celebrating, and embracing the rich and often overlooked legacy of Black cowboys and cowgirls in California beyond, through rodeos, public demonstrations, and cultural programming, the Coalition honors the generations of Black men and women whose labor, skill, and leadership shaped ranching, agriculture, and frontier life across the American West, contributing to the cultural, historical, and economic vitality of the state of California today. Congratulations on this occasion and receiving this special award for cultural and historic preservation during Black History Month.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Daryl Fletcher from Sufa Ranch.
Peter. Well, thank you.
We're presenting him this award today not only for his work, but also for how rare the type equine therapy is, finding practitioners of African American descent. As I mentioned, came to us all the way from Atlanta, so he hopped on a plane and generously devoted his time to be here to speak with you guys, and we're hoping to have him back at another capacity to talk a little bit more and to work with our kids in the future. But tonight we're honoring him and recognizing him for his commitment to transformative power of nature and the role of horses as partners in healing and leadership. As one of the few equine specialists of color in the field where diversity has historically been limited, you bring essential cultural representation to equine-assisted practice, showcasing how these programs foster confidence, discipline, leadership, and cultural connection, contributing to the cultural vibrance of the San Francisco Bay Area and across the state of California. Congratulations again on this occasion and for your special recognition during Black History Month.
Thank you.
Is Maurice Rivers here tonight? Well, he's not here tonight, but I just wanted to let everyone know we were also going to recognize Maurice Rivers. He is the Executive Director of OMI CPP, Cultural Participation Project. Maurice Rivers has been their Executive Director for over 6 years now, and he does a lot of community programming, exposing African American youth and BIPOC children to the arts. He often gets tickets to the opera as well as to the ballet, and distributes it throughout the community to make sure that children and families who normally couldn't afford those tickets to those events, like the Nutcracker and so forth, would have a chance to participate. So tonight we're also recognizing him in honor of his dedication to promoting cultural unity, diversity, education, and community engagement within San Francisco District 11, Ocean View, Merced Heights, Ingleside neighborhood, and beyond. Your commitment to neighborhood empowerment, outreach, and celebration of heritage reflects a deep belief in community-led cultural preservation and collective progress that promotes cultural unity, education, and community engagement that contributes to the cultural and economic vitality of San Francisco Bay Area and across the state of California. Congratulations to him as well as we honor him on Black History Month. And last but certainly not least, we also were honoring Amelia Ashley Ward. Most of you guys know her as the editor-in-chief of the Sun Reporter for over 30 years. She is considered a frontierswoman in journalism in San Francisco. She took over the famed Sun Reporter from Dr. Goodlett. So we're also honoring her tonight for trailblazing leadership and commitment to community storytelling, building political awareness, and preservation of the Black voice in the Bay Area. Her distinguished tenure as publisher, editor, and cultural steward helped preserve the San Francisco's most influential Black institution, the San Francisco Sun Reporter, safeguarding the cultural and political legacy of San Francisco Bay Area across the state of California. Congratulations on this occasion and your special recognitions during Black History Month. So we will be giving her this. So with that being said, I wanted to bid everyone adieu and say happy Black History Month and hope that you guys will enjoy sharing and attending various events throughout the Bay Area this year. And again, please spread the word, please donate to GLIDE, and make sure that our children have the supports they need for the rest of this year. Thank you.
Thank you.